Welcome inside the RX Muscle Studios in Westbury, New York. This is another edition of Iron Debate on rxmuscle.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Glad you can join us for our second episode of this show. A lot to discuss. On this show, we're going to be talking about NBC Sports Network picking up the Mr. Olympia competition for the first time since 1984. Our competitors are going to discuss whether or not that is in fact a monumental stance for bodybuilding or whether or not it's too little too late. Plus, Cody Montgomery, should he go for a three-peat at the teen division? That and a whole lot more. Let's introduce our competitors for tonight. First, we go to a first-timer joining us from Tampa, Florida. They call him Mr. Natural Olympia, John Henson. John, coming aboard for the first time. Pleased to have you aboard on the show, John.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to debate Chris Aceto, the technician.
See, John's being really generous right now. There's a lot of smack talk off air before we went on air, so John being a little mellow, but let's go now to the technician, Chris Aceto. Chris is in Miami. Last week he joined us from Maine. Right now he is sitting beachside in Miami Beach, Florida. Chris, what's going on in Miami?
Just trying to get over the Heat big loss last week or this past few days. So other than that, it's sunny and 90, and I'm ready to debate.
Miami Heat, of course, losing to the San Antonio Spurs in 5 games. I picked that. When I said 5, everybody called me a hater. They said, how could you bet against LeBron? How could you bet against the Heat? Well, that's exactly what went down. So Chris, right now, performing some therapy down in Miami. Our first topic of the night. This past weekend at the NPC Junior Nationals in Chicago, there was a bit of controversy. They were giving out pro cards for just about every division, every category, except for men's bodybuilding, including in that you're talking about men's physique, women's figure, fitness, and bikini. Chris, we're going to start with you tonight. Is that the right move? Should men's bodybuilding be receiving a pro card at that level, or is it a little too easy? Are pro cards being handed out like candy?
Well, I think when it comes to the bodybuilding division, yeah, they should hand them out because for a couple of reasons. One, they're handing them out like candy to other divisions. So to make it fair, why not hand them out to the bodybuilders too? It's a fact. You can become a bikini pro with one diet and one boob job under your belt. And to become a professional male bodybuilder, it takes years to build the foundation, in most cases, to be able to build the total amount of muscle mass required to get your pro card. So I guess what I'm saying is a lot of time and effort, more or greater length of time and effort goes into getting a men's professional bodybuilding card than any other division. So if you're going to hand them out to men's physique and women's physique and bikini and all the other divisions so easily, I think that they should think about handing out a pro card to an overall junior national champion, or at least have the option for the promoter and the president of the federation, if somebody comes by who's got just a tremendous physique and may not be ready for the pros this year in terms of placing, but might do well 2 years down the road. I think they should think about giving a pro card because there's no harm to it. It doesn't water down anyone's Phil Heath's achievements. It doesn't water down the Arnold Classic, Dennis Wolf's achievements. It brings a greater number of competitors into the professional ranks. And I think, frankly, that's what we need now, because if you go to men's physique, you'll have a men's pro class with 900 competitors, and you go to the men's bodybuilding, there's 35 in a show. So to keep it alive, to keep things juiced up in the pro ranks, I think it's a good option.
So, all right, John, Chris thinks there should be some more inclusion, that pro cards should be handed out, and that does not dilute the product. We're going to go over to you now. Do you agree? Should it be so easy, or should there be a higher barrier of entry at the pro level?
No, I don't agree. I think the Junior Nationals, just like the Junior USA, is just what it's named. It's a junior national level competition. It's a proving ground for guys who are trying to get their pro card. This is their first time at the national level, a lot of them, and they're going from the state or regional level, and they're trying to get to the national level. So they have to prove themselves at the national level before they get that pro card. You don't want to water down the pro cards and give them to just anybody. Like Chris said, a bikini competitor or a men's physique competitor doesn't need that much training compared to a bodybuilder. A bodybuilder may take 5 or 10 years of really hard training to develop their physique before they get to that level. If you look at the guys who've won the junior nationals in the past, like Lee Haney, Rich Gaspari, Sean Ray was in it, Eddie Robinson, Kevin Levrone lost to Paul DeMeo, Phil Heath. All those guys, when they won that show, they weren't ready to be professionals yet. But it proved to them that they were ready for the national level. And it proved to them that they had a good physique. But they had to get to that level first before they went on to the USA or the nationals. So it's a proving ground for these guys who are trying to get to that level. You shouldn't just give out pro cards to just everybody. You can't water it down. The pro card should be something that should be earned, and it should take a lot of time and a lot of effort in order to get there.
All right, so John clearly has the stance that you should have a little bit more tighter competition. There should be some more exclusivity. Chris, we're going to go back over to you. Just as far as the overall quality of competition, given that men's bodybuilding is the backbone of this sport, it's the original founder of the sport, essentially. It is what this entire sport was based off. Given that, and given that it is what the newer entrants, the newer aspiring bodybuilders want to go towards, should there be that level of exclusivity and a higher barrier of entry, just given how long the sport has been around and how evolved it is to this point?
Actually, then we need to go to pro shows and start thinking about rescinding pro cards, taking them away from people who are, 40th and from 25th to 40th who wouldn't even place at the junior nationals. I mean, they're professionals. They might not have come through our quote federation. They may not have graduated through the NPC, but we've been to pro shows lots and lots of times, and we look left, look right, and say, how's this guy pro? And it's not just one guy in the lineup. It's multiple guys who are coming in disaster condition or, flat as a pancake, and multiple times over and over, and we scratch our heads and say, how did they get the pro cards? I mean, we don't go and sit in the seats at at a pro show where people look like terrible after like the top 10 or the top 8 and say, geez, the pro division's being watered down by the entry, the lower barrier of different countries or different pro qualifiers. We just had the Olympia Amateur, whatever it was, we covered in Mexico. Guy got his pro card, right? Didn't he get his pro card? Yeah, he's going to get smashed, and he'd probably get smashed at the junior nationals. So he's got his pro card. I don't think it waters down or hurts people who are competing at the pro level right now.
John, we're going to go back over to you before we go to Dave for the final word. Does this impact the growth of the sport as far as growing the sport through quality instead of quantity?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what you want. You want quality top bodybuilders. And I think when these guys compete at the junior nationals, if they don't win, then they know they're not ready to be professionals yet. And that's exactly what that contest is designed for. It's to make them prove to themselves and to everybody how good they really are. I mean, if you go back to when Sean Ray competed in the junior nationals and lost to Eddie Robinson, he knew that he was coming off a teenage career where he was spectacular. But when he went up to the men's open division, he went up against Eddie Robinson. He knew he wasn't good enough to be a professional. 1 year later, he comes back and he dominates the nationals in one of the best conditions any national winner has ever been. And now he was ready for the pros. So I think, like I said, these junior national level shows are exactly what they're named for. They are proving grounds for these guys who are trying to get to the national level and then become professionals. And if you start watering it down, start giving it to the junior nationals, junior USA, the second place guys in the USA, you're going to get a lot of pros who don't belong there.
All right, so John thinks there needs to be a higher level of entry, that it shouldn't be so easy to gain your pro card to gain that status, whereas Chris thinks that's not necessarily going to water down the competition. We're going to go to the final word with Dave Palumbo, who's joining me here in the RX Muscle Studios in Westbury. But before we do that, I'd be remiss, Dave, not to ask you about this past weekend in Acapulco, Mexico.
I made it a work vacation. I actually went scuba diving. I don't know if Johnny has the pictures. I body surfed. I scuba dived. I have the blisters on my feet to prove it, and I got the suntan to prove it. So it was rather nice, and we were welcomed with open arms down in Acapulco by the president, Francesco Cabeza, and Rafael Santonio, the IFBB president. So we had a good time. But to get to the question really is, and I asked the powers that be, why do they give so many bikini pro cards? Why do they give so many men's physique pro cards? And the answer I received was, it encourages people to compete. There's so many people, it encourages them, if they know that they can win a pro card, more people will compete in more contests. And so I ask, we're worried about the sport of bodybuilding dying because there's not enough people entering it. Wouldn't this be a good way to incentivize people to compete? They're giving the nationals, the NPC nationals, now they give the second place winners of the super heavy, the heavyweight, the light heavy, the middleweight, the bantamweight, the welterweight, and the lightweight class a pro card. So 2 bantamweights are going home with a pro card. If that's not watering it down already, at the Masters Nationals, they give the winner and one other guy a pro card. If you go to the Junior Nationals and you win, give the overall a pro card, your quality of competitor at the Junior Nationals will be much greater. So you're not going to get you might even get a better overall champion, a better pro card out of the Junior Nationals than you'll get out of the second place finisher at the Nationals. So in my my belief system, I really think that they should consider adding at least 1 pro card. I mean, I think you gave 6, they give out 12 pro cards or something like that at the Junior Nationals for men's physique. What's going to encourage people to compete more in each division? If I'm a new bodybuilder, I'm going to say, I'm going to do men's physique. It's a lot easier to get a pro card than having to break my ass and do bodybuilding and just do 3 shows or whatever, 4 shows they give them pro cards at. So I'm going to have to side with Chris on this one.
So Dave is going to side with Chris, saying that it is essential for the growth of the sport. It's going to encourage new competitors, existing competitors to stay in the bodybuilding division, a division that may be losing out to the physique side of things. We're going to move on to our next subject now. Now, we're going to spice it up a little bit. We're going to bring in some controversy. A figure in the bodybuilding world by the name of Rich the Mutant Piana. Someone who has a massive social media following, a huge YouTube following. If you check his Facebook page, his Twitter page, I believe he's up near about 12,000 Twitter followers, and he has a very fiercely loyal following. He has the kind of following where when he posts something, he gets instant feedback. So clearly people are following him, watching him, and now what you're starting to get is a lot of the younger bodybuilders, aspiring bodybuilders, are starting to follow. As you look at that image over there, they're starting to follow in his path. You see the tattoos, you see all the substance he puts on his arms, you see the apparel. This is one of those characters that every sport has one. You look at basketball, you had the Dennis Rodman type. And perhaps Rich Piana is the Dennis Rodman of bodybuilding. So here is the question. Is it good for the sport? Is he good for the sport? Is it vital to have a character like Rich Piana in bodybuilding? Or is it perhaps a negative to have someone like that be a quasi-face of the industry? John, we're going to start with you. Rich Piana, the Mutant. Is someone like that good for the sport of bodybuilding?
Well, I don't know if he's good for the sport of bodybuilding. As far as him being the face of bodybuilding, I definitely don't think he should be considered the face or the representative of bodybuilding. I'm sure Rich is a nice guy, and he's got a huge social media, like you said. He's got a big following. He's very honest with his opinions and stuff, and I think that's why he has such a big fan base. However, you guys know me. I'm old school, and one thing I don't agree with is the use of synthol, the site injections, whatever it is you're calling it. And that, to me, that's not bodybuilding. That's not representative of what real bodybuilding is. You know, when I was younger, you're talking about younger guys looking up to Rich. When I was younger and I started bodybuilding, I used to read the muscle magazines and look at Arnold, look at Lou Ferrigno, Robbie Robinson. And as spectacular as these guys looked, to me, they looked more like superheroes. And even though I was a skinny kid looking at these guys, I could imagine myself one day looking like them. And that's what inspired me to be into bodybuilding. And that's what I thought was a good representative of bodybuilding. When you get into the thing where you got like 25-inch arms, now you're going from bodybuilding being something respected and something that's considered a sport to like a freak show. And to me, that's not really what bodybuilding is. That's not the heart and core of what bodybuilding is. So in my opinion, no, I don't think Rich is like the face of bodybuilding. I don't think he's what should be considered what kids should look up to. Even though he's got a big fan base, and I understand why he's got a big fan base, to me, that's not what bodybuilding is.
Chris, again, Dave brought this up in the last segment that bodybuilding in and of itself, it's a sport that's looking for more entrants. And obviously you want to keep quality, but when you look at a character like Rich Piana, and I don't want to be quoted as saying that he is the face of bodybuilding, but it is apparent that he has a massive following among young aspiring bodybuilders. Your take on Rich Piana and what he brings to the sport, the image that he represents in the sport, and whether or not he is a good or bad thing for bodybuilding?
Well, I guess you can look at it multiple ways. The first thing that jumps out at me is, why isn't Phil Heath the face of bodybuilding? I mean, he's won 3 Mr. Olympias. You can't criticize Rich Piana for being a face or the face of bodybuilding just because he's out there, he's active, he's he is who he is. I mean, if people, I don't think he's gone out there and said, "Hi, everybody," on social media, "I'm the face of bodybuilding," but people have deemed him to be the face of bodybuilding, which means they like him. And if they like him, there's nothing that you or I or John or Dave can do about it. And if he's got thousands and thousands of followers and he's a bodybuilder, I don't think there's really any downside to it. Just because he can't win the LA, or I've never won the LA or the Nationals or the Cal or the Junior Nationals, doesn't mean that he's not popular, extremely popular, and quote, the face of bodybuilding. Frankly, if he walked down the Lincoln Road in Miami Beach, and Phil Heath walked down Lincoln Road in Miami Beach, I bet Rich would probably attract as many looks, stares, "Hey, that's Rich Piana," as would, if not more, than Phil Heath. So I don't think there's a negative to it. And again, Phil Heath or Rich Piana, they're attracting looks and gawkers and that type of thing. I can't see where you can viably come up with criticizing him for being a face. Does he have titles? No. Do titles mean anything, to people who buy his products, to people who buy his supplements, or to, he was with a very well-known nutrition company for a long period of time. Obviously, people didn't go up to him at a booth and say, "Well, I can't stop by and ask for your autograph because, you've got no titles." They could care less. And, frankly, if I was walking around, the Arnold Expo, and I saw him and he looked freaky, and I was an 18-year-old kid, I'd probably go up to him and say, "You look freaky." So he's the delts, shoulders, face, and arms of not professional bodybuilding, but bodybuilding, and people don't even make the distinction between professional bodybuilding and non-professional bodybuilding. So I don't even think that matters either, that he has no pro card.
Chris, I'm gonna stick with you on this one, because you're bringing up points that are very valid as far as him not being a problem necessarily to the sport. But again, this is someone, and you mentioned it, that does not compete. That's not really of that frame of mind. He doesn't pretend to be someone who's training for any competitions or any titles or anything of that sort. But John did mention his use of synthol and his, again, that side of who he is and what he represents. And again, he does have a big following. So clearly, the younger bodybuilders that are looking up to him, he may not have any pro titles, he may not be competing for any shows, but he does have a following, and he does bring that controversy, and it may be in the form of artificial enhancers, PEDs, synthol. Is that part of it good for the future of bodybuilding?
I don't think anyone who looks at Rich Piana has other than people who are on our site, for example, who know the difference between these things and don't, meaning synthol or whatever it is that's supposedly in his body parts. I don't think the people who follow him on social media really care. I mean, and even if they do know, they probably don't care anyway. I mean, we're in 2014. Everyone has fake ass, fake tits. I mean, it's if Rich Piana was and people knew that he was jimmying up his delts or something and shoulders and delts, chest and try or whatever he does, and competing in a show, I think that's very different than is he a face of bodybuilding and is it negative for bodybuilding? I think he's when all is said and done, he's a good marketer. He likes what he does. He has fun. He's kind of like a cross between Rodman and Hogan. And, this is how we know he's good for bodybuilding. We should have him on the show tonight. And people would come and they would say, yeah, I saw you, Chris, I saw you with, that's what they would say to me. Chris, that was a great show. You had Rich Piana on, and people would love it. So that's how we know he's a good face, because people probably like all week would email me and say, loved it when, you were talking to Rich about XYZ.
All right, so Chris clearly thinks that just the fact that he is marketable, he does a great job promoting himself and his brand, is a good thing for the sport. John, we're going to go back over to you. Being a purist, these are your words, as far as being old school. What Chris is saying, as far as really, it doesn't matter. All right, he doesn't profess to be a competitor. He doesn't profess to be, quote unquote, all natural. This is the reality. This is 2014. Chris referenced the fact that people have fake tits, fake ass, fake everything, what have you. You being an old school guy, and there are many other in the industry that are like you in that thinking. Again, your thoughts as far as Rich Piana's impact on the future of this sport, being that Rodman, Hulk Hogan type character.
Yeah, well, I just look at it as, if he's the representative or the face of bodybuilding, like we were saying, and these young kids are looking up to him, and they may not know, they may think that that's possible to get 25-inch arms, just by training. That's the one thing like Chris was saying, it's 2014 and everybody now is branching off. Everybody's getting a little more unique, a little more weird. It's not like mass production anymore. And that's what the difference is between now and maybe 30 years ago. And so I understand his appeal, but I'm just saying, as far as an influence, as far as what the representatives of bodybuilding should look like, to me, that's not the look for me. Old school.
A old school perspective from a purist perspective, and again, those are the schools of thoughts that you would get in any sport, in particular bodybuilding. You're going to have the new age. You're going to have those that train in a more conventional style years ago, or again, there are going to be different opinions on this based off which school of thought you're from. We're going to go back over now to Dave Palumbo for the final word. Dave, given Rich Piana's popularity and the controversy that he comes with, he is a good promoter. He's a great marketer. Your thoughts on whether or not he is good or bad for the sport of bodybuilding?
I think the real question is, maybe he's just too good at what he does. And he's better at doing what he does than Phil Heath is, than, all the current crop of top Olympia competitors, the Kai Greens, who seem to be in seclusion except when they come out and do some kind of quirky dance or something like that, or guest posing. The guys like Sean Roden, you don't see him all year. And, that's a problem. These are the guys that are supposed to be promoting the sport and supposed to be the faces of the sport, and we don't see them. They're under exclusive contracts with companies that hoard them and put them on the shelf all year until maybe a week or two before a show, and then they still don't want to come out because they're crying about the fact that they're dieting and they're tired. And then maybe for like a week after the show, you'll see them talk, or you'll see them exposed, or you'll see some guest posings and stuff like that. And to me, that's boring. I think that people like Rich Piana because he's out there. He's not exclusive to anyone. He'll talk to anyone. He promotes himself. And I think, like what we do here on RX Muscle, he's out there communicating with the fans, talking to the fans. I answer my phone when it rings. I don't have a secretary answer it. I answer my emails when I get emails, and the fans like that. It's when you isolate yourself from the public as some of these top Olympian guys do, they become almost impossible to touch, or to be the realness of them disappears. And I think Rich is a real guy, and that's why people relate to him. Is it bad to have him as the image of the sport? I don't think that, like he should be Mr. Olympia, like John Hansen said. But at the same time, as Chris had said, I don't think he's bad for the sport. I think, if anything, he's bringing attention to it and getting people to maybe want to go into it. So I think in that respect, he's probably a good thing.
Dave, I want to stick with you on this real quick. Just, again, going back to what John said, and again, it's a very interesting perspective, because in bodybuilding, you're going to have the thought process of somebody who comes from the old school, from a more conventional standpoint. Talk about the concerns that someone like John would have about a Rich Piana. Again, you talked about in the first segment the growth of this sport, the future of this sport. How does someone like this affect the purity of the sport in a way where someone like a John, and there are many others like him who had that old school mentality, how does it affect him in that perspective going forward in this sport, attracting the next crop of bodybuilders?
Well, when I was coming up and I would watch, see pictures of Lee Haney or Dorian Yates, to me, that was Rich Piana. I mean, that was as unattainable as anything. So I trained and like my butt off in the gym and ate and everything like that with the idea that I wanted to look like that, even if it was a non-reality at the time. And even if I was naive to the fact that there was performance-enhancing substances being used and stuff like that. So it still got me into the sport. And then I had to make my own opinions and my own judgments calls as to where I wanted to go, in what direction. So if something out there is drawing people to bodybuilding, whether it be a negative image in some people's mind or a non-negative image, once the person gets to the bodybuilding sport, then they can make the decisions where they want to go. So that I don't think that it's a negative. I don't think Rich Piana is a negative to the sport.
We're going to move on now to our third topic of debate. This is, of course, Iron Debate on RxMuscle.com, your year-round home for the world of bodybuilding, #1 in contest coverage. We're going to move on now to our third topic. Speaking of contest coverage, Cody Montgomery has absolutely dominated at the teen division. Absolutely dominated the last 2 years. He has won the teen nationals now 2 years in a row. He has an opportunity to go for a three-peat, and now you're starting to hear the questions. You're starting to hear the whispers. Whether or not Cody Montgomery should, in fact, go for that teen three-peat, per se, or should he go for a more challenging route? Should he try to compete in a men's open division? Should he try to go pro? Should he try to be competing at a tougher level? If he stays at this teen level, tries to go for the three-peat, is that a negative mark? Is that showboating in a way? So, John, we're going to start with you. Cody Montgomery, should he go for the three-peat at the teen division?
Absolutely. I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome that he's coming back for the third year. I mean, this is what bodybuilding is all about, man. You got to go out there and show you're a champion. And the fact that this kid won it at 17 is amazing. His first time. And I remember that show, he beat a much bigger guy and he was more ripped, so it was a very close decision. And then last year at 18 years old, he came back probably about 10 pounds heavier and he dominated. And so I think, yeah, absolutely, he should come back at 19 and win it again, win it 3 times. Absolutely. If he can do it, why not do it? I think it's awesome. I think that's what bodybuilding is all about. Arnold Schwarzenegger won the Olympia 6 times when before him somebody only won it 3 times. When Lee Haney was going to break Arnold's record, did somebody say, hey, Lee, that's showboating, you should stop at number 7, so you just tie Arnold's record and don't beat it? No, he went and beat it. And that's, Michael Jordan, we can't mention the Heat, so let's go back to the Bulls. When Michael Jordan won the NBA championship 6 times, why stop? Keep winning it as much as you can. Show everybody that you're a champion. Dominate the sport. That's exactly what you should do. And, there's a chance that Cody could lose this year. I mean, he's putting it on the line. He's a champ. He's coming back as a 2-time champ. Some freak could come out of nowhere and beat him. So he's still taking a chance. But, yeah, show you're a dominant physique in the teenage division. And then when he goes into the open division, it's going to be absolutely much harder for him. But he'll come in with this reputation that he's a 3-time champ, and that's only going to help him when he goes into the open division and starts competing in national level shows as a 20-year-old. So absolutely, I think he should win. I hope he does win. And I think it's great that he's coming back as a champion and trying to get it the 3rd time.
Well, John brought up the Michael Jordan comparison. I guess the comparable equation here would be Michael Jordan winning 3 straight championships at the University of North Carolina, and then people wondering if he's going to go pro. Chris, we're going to go back over to you now. For Cody Montgomery, again, he's won now 2 years in a row, looking to possibly come back and go for the three-peat. Should he go for the three-peat, or should he challenge himself and go to a tougher bracket?
Well, to use the Michael Jordan analogy, Michael Jordan was good enough as a 19-year-old collegiate basketball player in North Carolina to go right into the NBA and dominate, which he did. As good as Cody Montgomery is, he's obviously not good enough to go into the NPC Nationals and dominate. That said, if you want to talk challenging yourself, a challenge would be to take a big risk, forego the team nationals, and go into an open show, whether it be the nationals, maybe he's not ready, or the junior nationals. They're just, I don't see there being a big upside benefit to being a 3-time, I'm going to water it down a little bit, teeny bopper champion. Because we know he's going to win, and we know he's outstanding, and we know he's fantastic. And when you know you're fantastic, and when you know you're special, you push yourself and you take risks. Life's about taking risks. If it was me, and I had that physique, I would be challenging myself to have competed in the junior nationals this past weekend. Because it's clearly not the nationals. I mean, how's that for quote publicity? How's that for building your quote reputation or level of achievements? Where you say, you know what, I'm not even out of my teen years, and I won my class at the junior nationals. There's more bragging rights to that than there is to by the way, I won the teen nationals for the 3rd time. And as we know, nobody's coming out of nowhere to beat them, because there's not many, and that's a big problem. There's not many teenage bodybuilders. It kind of ties in a little bit to the Rich Piana issue when we say, the young guys looking up to so-and-so. The young guys are not around anymore in bodybuilding. The level of teenagers is not there, as well as the total number of competitors are not there. So, he'll go in and he'll win, but it's almost like I look at it as the opposite. Oh yeah, I won when I was 17. I guess the only way you can congratulate him is having the self-mental ability to push yourself to a title that you know that you already won twice, and won 2 months out of puberty when you were 17 years old. That's how good he is.
So clearly, Chris, what do you call it? The teeny bopper division, the High School Musical division. John, we're going to go back over to you. Talk about, I'm going to give you a minute here to give the significance of winning a three-peat at this level. What is it in him for his brand, for where he is in his career, and how could this set him up going forward if he, in fact, gets a three-peat, pending that nobody else really seems to be a major threat at that level?
Well, like you just said, I mean, if he wins a three-peat, who else has done that at the teenage level? I don't remember anybody ever doing that. So I think that's going to be his legacy going forward, is that he won the teenage nationals 3 times, and he was that dominant as a teenager. So I think that can't do anything but help him. And like Chris said, if he wants to prove himself on a higher ground, the teenage nationals is in the summer, the nationals is in November. Why not just go right to the nationals? He'll still be 19 years old, I think, unless his birthday's later in the year. He could be one of the few guys to get his pro card as a teenager, like Shane DeMora did in, I think, 86. He won the teenage nationals, he won his class at the junior nationals, and he won his class at the nationals. So this guy became a teenager at 19 years old, and Cody could do the same thing. And I think that's what he should do. He should go in, win this thing the 3rd time, and then go on to the nationals later in the year.
So, Chris, again, just to go back to the point you made about this being the teeny bopper division, is there no cachet in winning a title 3 times in a row and going again, assuming this is going to be it for him, and now on to the next challenge, on to the tougher divisions, on to the open men's divisions competitions, is there no cachet in winning 3 straight and going into his pro career with some real hefty momentum?
I think there's only cachet in winning 3 Arnolds, 3 Olympias, 3 New York Pros, those type of shows. I mean, it's nice to have trophies on your mantle that say you won the Teenage Nationals 3 times. But I don't, I mean, I guess how do you define cachet? What do you do with it? You've won 3 times. I mean, Shane DeMora, where is he? He was the most successful teenage bodybuilder of all time. I mean, he was winning the teen nationals and did you hear what John said? And the nationals and the junior nationals all in the same year. Where is he? Pec terror all. Where is he? By the time he got to the teen national, to the open pro shows, he was, it's a different league. I guess the point is, people listening to this radio show for cachet, they don't know who Shane DeMora is. Even big-time bodybuilding fans, they say, oh, yeah, I kind of sort of remember that guy a little bit. So, I don't think it carries forward in terms of, your past performance as a teenager into the future where you're going to be outside of a few people, obviously. There are like Sean Ray, Jay Cutler, Branch Warren, and that's not to say that this guy might not be a pro or a very good pro, but it's to push yourself to win a 3rd teenage title, to push your body, is congratulations to him because he can do it, obviously. But it's like it's not like winning an Olympia 3 times. Yeah, it's the biggest title and it's probably extremely important to him, but I would have saved myself for, something big, winning the junior nationals as a teenager, or, getting the first call out in the nationals as a teenager. That is, something.
All right, so Chris clearly does not find the cachet or value in Cody Montgomery going for a 3-peat. John does think there is value in going for it at the teen division. We're going to go back to Dave Palumbo now for the final word on this topic. Dave, Cody Montgomery, should he go for the 3-peat? Would it be looked at as showboating? Is there value in winning 3 straight teen titles?
I love records. Cody already broke the record. He 2-timed it. I don't think there's going to be ever anyone that's going to 2-time it again. In that respect, I can take my hat off to him. I took my hat off to him last year, and I gave him the accolades he deserved. To win it a 3rd time, I think it is showboating. It's kind of analogous to Sean Penn. He did that movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High where he played like a surfer dude back in the 80s. Like, it would be like him coming back and trying to do that again. I think he wanted to elevate his game as an actor and say, okay, I did that. It was cool. Everyone laughed. But now I want to show them that I'm the real deal. And I think really that's where Cody's at right at this point. 2 times is enough. I think he really proved he moved up a weight class when he last year. I think he should be testing himself out, like Chris said, at the junior nationals. At the nationals, try to become the youngest pro. I don't know if he, age-wise, when the USA comes around this year, if he would be the youngest pro if he did in fact win. He just might be, or maybe not. But I would say that's a great record to go for. Shane DeMora is the youngest. I think Sean Ray might be the youngest to win the overall, have won the overall. But Cody certainly could have possibly gotten his pro card in that light heavyweight class at the USA had he shown up, or he still might show up. I don't know. Doing teen nationals is kind of a step back. It's kind of like the guy who I knew this kid who used to do the novice division and the open division at every regional bodybuilding show around because he wanted to get trophies. I'm like, why are you doing the novice division? Just do the open division. You've already won the novice division. And he's like, well, he wanted to kind of hedge his bets. I feel like that's what Cody's doing at this point.
Dave, I'll just stick with this one more point about this. You don't see value. Forget about the titles. Forget about the accolades at the teen division. Talk about a year of development that he would have between the competition and then progressing into the pros. Do you not see any value in that further evolutionary process going from teen to pro?
I do. So then have him take the whole year off if he wants to put muscle on. Why diet at all and cut into his muscle gains that he's been making over the last year, if that's what his goal is. I bet you we see him on Team. I don't even know, but I'll bet you we see him at Team Nationals and we see him at USA. I would not be surprised if he's not there. And if he does go there, is that a step back? I mean, Branch Warren, I believe, won the Team Nationals and beat Jay Cutler when he was 18. We didn't see him come back the following year at 19 and try to win it again. He was working on putting on muscle on his physique to get himself to the next level to try to get his pro status.
So we've been talking about contests. We are going to step aside, but when we return, 2 more topics to go, 2 more related to contests. When we come back, we're going to be talking about an experimental new format for the IFBB Pittsburgh Pro Master Champions. Pay to play. Is it a good idea? An experimental? Is it genius? Or is it disrespectful? That and NBC Sports Network, who's done a great job expanding their overall content, overall distribution, now they're latching on to the world of bodybuilding. They're going to be broadcasting the Mr. Olympia. Is it good for the sport? Is it monumental for the sport? Or is it too little too late? That and a whole lot more. Iron Debate on RX Muscle, RX TV, RxMuscle.com. We'll be right back.
This is IFBB Figure Pro Heather Dees, and you are watching RX Television.
Hey guys, it's Dave Palumbo, and I'm happy to announce that we have a brand new release from Species Nutrition. It's called Protolyze. It's the world's best quality, best tasting whey protein isolate fueled protein pudding on the market. Now, we all know that we love pudding. We grew up eating pudding as kids, but the Jell-O brand pudding that we ate was usually loaded with sugar and milk and all kinds of stuff that really was not good for us. But I created the first pudding that you can actually eat while contest dieting. It's got virtually no carbs, virtually no fat, and it's got a whopping 30 grams of protein. Like I said, it's called Protolyze, and what makes it so significant is that you take 1 serving of this, put it in your little bowl here, add 2 ounces of water, mix, and you have instant pudding, vanilla, and delicious chocolate. This chocolate pudding is better than Jell-O brand pudding. I guarantee you, you will love the taste. There is absolutely no aftertaste. And what I did was, to give it a little extra body, we put a little micellar casein into the mix to thicken it up, but also what it does is it makes this Protolyze protein pudding time released. Now, when we're dieting and we don't want our food to go through us too fast, but we want it to sustain us a little bit, give us a little bit of satiety so we're not as starved, we put in this casein and it delays the absorption of the protein long enough to hold you between meals. You eat this, serving this right before bed, and I'm telling you, you will not be hungry during the night. And I also promise you this will be the best tasting protein pudding that you've ever put into this mouth. No aftertaste. You can't even tell that it's artificially sweetened, and there's not a single gram of sugar in this thing. So guys, if you're looking for a high quality whey protein isolate fueled, not soy, there's no soy in this product, protein pudding, and you're looking for that snack to hold you over, or maybe, you know what, maybe you're trying to bulk up and you just need something that tastes different. You don't want to have another protein shake that's going through you. You want something with a little body. You take 1 scoop of this, or if you're a big guy, you do 2 scoops and you'll get 60 grams of protein in your protein pudding. You mix it up and you got it ready to eat, and I got to tell you, this is delicious. I think I outdid myself on this one.
I'm Andrea Holiday, and I'm an IFBB Women's Physique Pro, but I'm also a coach and a trainer. When clients come to me for advice, I make it my business to give them the most intelligent solutions to all their problems. And I base that information on each person's specific goals. As an elite level competitor, my goal is to gain high quality muscle while maintaining a lean, ripped physique. Species Nutrition's Isolyze is the purest whey isolate on the market. It has no fat, no carbs, and it tastes outrageously great. My personal favorite is chocolate peanut butter. So next time you purchase the protein shake, remember, buy the best, buy Isolyze.
We got a nice little care package from Quest Nutrition.
There better be some apple pie in this. I'm taking apple pie at all of them.
Alright, what up? It's Gilbert Melendez, chilling with my Quest bar here. First and foremost, most importantly, they're delicious. But it's good to have a good protein bar before training. Gluten-free, you gotta love it. And it tastes good, and it feels like it's doing the trick. I listen to my body, and it says yes to this, so give it a shot.
They taste great. They're awesome. They allow me to feel like I have a little treat while I'm still eating real strict for my training camp and everything. So I'm super excited. Off the top of my head, I have to say the cinnamon roll, the apple pie, and probably the lemon. But I haven't had one yet that I don't like.
This is IFBB Figure Pro Heather Dees, and you are watching RX Television.
Back inside the RX studios here in Westbury, New York. Iron Debate on rxmuscle.com. Pleased to have you aboard. This has been a contest-heavy show. We have talked about participants getting pro cards, whether or not it was too easy, whether or not there should be more of a barrier of entry. We've talked about Rich Piana, one of the bad boys, the true bad boys of the sport of bodybuilding. And we just talked about Cody Montgomery, whether or not he should still compete at the teen division and go for back-to-back-to-back teen division titles. We are going to stick with competitions, a new experimental form of competition here. So the IFBB Pittsburgh Pro Masters Champions, they're going to have two separate tangents here. One, it's only open to Masters Pro qualifiers. It is not open to open division competitors, so there is some of a barrier of entry. Second, however, there is an entry fee. There's a $200 entry fee to enter into this competition. Chris, we are going to start with you. Is this a good idea? Is it a genius idea? Is it something that can catch on? Or is it disrespectful to some of the older competitors, having them pay to compete?
I don't think it's disrespectful for anyone to have to pay for anything. You know, we pay for everything. You know, every facet of life you have to pay for something. I guess the question is you know, a professional level show for masters. You know, to me, it almost seems like there should be an asterisk next to it. Meaning, I understand they're professionals, but at the same time, they're masters, which sounds like an oxymoron. To be a master professional, it's like saying a teen professional, meaning we know you can't, as a team professional, if there was such a thing, compete against the guys who are, doing the New York Pro. And same thing with those, in most cases, with the Masters professional, with the exception of the Freemans, the people who have been seasoned through the professional ranks for 15 years, the Freemans, the Dexters, some of the best of the best.
John, we're going to go over to you now. As far as the experimental new format, only allowing Masters Pros qualifiers, not accommodating general open division competitors. A, is that a good idea? B, charging the entry fee of $200 for the competitors. Where do you fall on that? Is that a good idea as far as having a pot at the end of it, or is that disrespectful in any way to older competitors?
Well, I think it's a good idea, first of all, to have a pro contest for the Masters competitors, because they're giving out pro cards at a lot of these contests for the Masters competitors. So they have to have somewhere to go, and to ask older guys over 40, over 50 to go into an open division or an open pro show is, it's very difficult for them. Most of them aren't going to do very well or stand out at all. As far as the entry fee goes, I can sort of understand it from the promoter's standpoint, because this is the first time they've ever done anything like this. They've never done a pro show for Masters competitors. So I can understand from his viewpoint, he wants to take a little bit of the risk off, and he's going to offer prize money, obviously, for these guys. So I can understand why he's doing it, and I think it is a good idea. And then, do the first show, do this first one, and see how it goes. And then after that, they can make adjustments from there.
Chris, again, this is a new idea. Is this something that, again, to your point, you don't have a problem with it? You feel as if bodybuilders, competitors, they pay for enough as it is. Why not add an entry fee? But now, what if there becomes a precedent, and now going forward, you have some competitions which have a higher entry fee, and it gets to the point where, all right, now it may start to weed some people out of the competitions who, again, they may be qualified, but either they're priced out, or it's just something where they may feel, again, it is a sign of disrespect. Maybe not necessarily at this level, but at other competitions, at other divisions, at other age levels too.
Well, if you can't cough up the $200 for the entry fee, you can't cough up the $200 every 3 days for food that it costs to prepare. I look at it this way: if I was a promoter and I was promoting any event, any type of event, I would require, meaning an open men's pro show. Personally, I would ask for an entry fee, just because putting together one of these shows, while can be profitable, it requires risk. So if you're a promoter taking the risk to do something that no one's ever done before, then I think it's your right to be able to demand an entry fee. And I personally, I would throw it into the context of, you got to travel to these shows anyway. You got to prepare for these shows, which everyone knows costs a fortune anyway. You got to fly there, hotel, rental car. These are expenses, and while they're not collected by promoters, the promoter doesn't fly you in. The promoter doesn't generally put you up in a hotel room unless you're like one of the best of the best. So why would you get to do the show free as well? And you know what? If the guy is successful and he did charge a $200 entry fee and he made a profit, I'm happy that he makes a profit, because he'll want to do the show again next year. If the guy gets floored and the thing's a flop and he loses money, he's not going to want to do the show next year. Promoters need to be able to, and everyone needs to be able to turn a profit so that they can be motivated to do the same thing next year.
John, I'm going to give you another angle here. Is it good for the sport to nurture competition amongst the older competitors?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I just promoted the show out here in Tampa for the MPC, and we had a lot of competitors in the Masters divisions, whether masters figure or masters bodybuilding. So there's obviously an audience there. There's a certain group of competitors that are in their 40s or 50s and they want to compete in that category. I just talked to a lady today who was 50 years old and she wants to compete in bikini for the first time in her first contest. So there's a big audience out there, and if they don't have, a way to get a pro card, and if they do get the pro card, where do they go? So you have to have professional masters competitions. And like I said, this is the first one, but it's a step in the right direction because it gives people a chance to compete at the pro level once they get their pro card. Otherwise, what are they going to do with it? They have the card, but they're not realistically not going to be able to compete in any shows.
All right, so we're going to go to Dave Palumbo for the final word on this topic. Dave, first of all, just the format of this competition, is this good as far as nurturing competition among some of the older competitors of the sport, or is it a tinge disrespectful? Also, the entry fee. Is this a good idea, bad idea? Is it a bad precedent going forward?
Right off the bat, I thought that giving out Masters Pro cards was a terrible idea because I just think it kind of waters down the pro division. Once they started doing it, I started saying to myself, well, like John said, where are these guys going to go? They can't really compete in the open division. Most of them can, at least. So the idea that Gary would hold a pro show, Masters show, yet limit it, this is the key, limit it to people that only qualify for their Masters Pro card at a Masters event. In other words, not a Tony Freeman, not a Troy Alves who's 47 years old but yet has been competing in the open division their whole career. Brilliant idea. Give these people a place to compete. What I don't like is the entry fee idea. I understand why they're doing it, but these people are pros. They've worked their whole career. They've paid their sanction fees. They paid their application fees at all these shows. They finally turned pro. Now they're supposed to be making money, hopefully, by winning shows, and they're having to pay again. So I think it's a bad idea. I mean, let's take it for instance. At $200 per entry fee, and you could do multiple divisions. It's $200 per division. If they get 200 entries, okay, that's $40,000 they raised. Is all that money? And I know there's a sanction fee, probably $5 or $10 grand they got to pay. Is the rest of that money going back to the athletes in the way of prize money? I don't know if that much it will. I think that it's great for the promoter to make his money on ticket sales, obviously, and vendor booths and stuff like that. That's great. And if the money's going back to the athletes in the way of prize money, 100% of it, I'm all in favor of it. But as a pro, if I'm a pro, I would like to not have to pay an entry fee. I think that's a tad disrespectful.
Well, Dave, again, in the last show, it was discussed that you've been accused of being a quote-unquote ageist. Now, this is a topic that I don't know where it came from or how it came about, this accusation that was levied against you, but you talked about some of the older competitors not competing in some of these open divisions against in some of these more high-profile shows, that it does, in a way, water down the quality of the show, that somebody who's reached their prime or going past their prime, nobody wants to see them anymore. Now, this is an opportunity to create some open competition for some of the older competitors. Your thoughts on that?
I'm still less than enthused about watching the Masters Pro Nationals. Masters Pro Championships. I'll be there commentating on it, and I'm sure people will enjoy it. I know these Masters competitors really get a kick out of competing. I don't even know if it's even healthy for people that old to be dehydrating themselves and putting their bodies through the stress of contest prep. But then again, that's not my decision to make. It's a personal decision, and I would never take away a person's right to do that. So, like I said, I think it's a nice way for what Gary's doing, Gary Udit, who's the promoter. It's a great idea, and he figured out a way financially to make it worth it. Because let's face it, no other promoter would do this because it just financially is not worth it. We're having to pay a sanction fee and put up prize money. So Gary figured out a way. All right, you know what? If these competitors really want to compete that bad, pay. Here's the money. This is the way we'll fund it by the competitors paying an application fee. He'll take that money, pay towards the trophies, pay towards the sanction fee and the prize money. And you know what? I guess it works. It might be just more ingenious than anyone else has come up with of an idea. So, like I said, I'm in favor of anything that builds the sport up. But personally, it kills me to see these guys at less than their prime competing, still. I don't mind the people that maybe never competed in their life and they're just trying to prove something, or they lost a lot of weight or whatever. But I like to see the best of the best, and that's what interests me.
All right, so we're going to move on now to our fifth and final topic, Iron Debate RXTV and RXMuscle.com. Mr. Olympia coming up in September. The NBC Sports Network, not NBC, NBC Sports Network, which has seen a lot of strides over the last 2-3 years in their coverage of hockey, the NHL. Well, they've also latched on to some other sports as well. They've latched on to car racing. They've latched on to fishing. And they've done a really good job. Soccer as well. They've brought the Premier League into U.S. households. The World Cup going on right now, of course. And they're seeing record numbers of sorts. And many people attribute that to NBC Sports Network's coverage of the British Premier League, really bringing American households some of the best in world soccer. And now they're looking to latch on as you get a look there at the Joe Weider's Olympia, September 18th through the 21st. Well, this program wouldn't air till a month later. It's going to be airing on October 18th and October 25th. This, of course, being the 50th anniversary of the Olympia contest. So NBC Sports Network had the idea, well, let's see if we could do anything with this. It's going to be the first time, really since 1984 when Lee Haney won. In 1984, you think to yourself, where were you in 1984? I was 4 years old. It was before my first ever baseball game. But when you consider the job that NBC Sports Network has done with these other aforementioned sports and the job that it's done growing some of the profiles of these sports, now the question is this. Is this a monumental occasion for bodybuilding in America? Can NBC Sports Network and their multiple multimedia platforms really do wonders in enhancing the overall broadcast content, the broadcast package of bodybuilding in America? Or is it too little too late when you consider the fact that other websites, bodybuilding.com, other publications do a great job, RxMuscle.com, of live streaming a lot of these events, bringing them into households not only in this country but around the world. And when you look at the multimedia content, the multimedia direction that the world is going in, is this too little too late? So, Chris, we're going to start with you. NBC Sports Network latching on to bodybuilding, coverage of Mr. Olympia contest October 18th and the 25th. Is this a great thing for bodybuilding, or is this too little too late?
I mean, it's probably, I wouldn't say it's a great thing because it's a yes and no answer. It's a little bit too little too late, meaning, you know, when you were 4 years old, dude, there was 3 stations in your hometown, NBC, ABC, and CBS. Now there's 300 zillion stations, and people who have their heads like me are going cross-eyed by looking at their iPhones, which means, you know, we're also Instagram, Facebook, interneted out, that we forget that there are, you know, TV media outlets that cover sports. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't think it's as prestigious as it was when in 1981, 82, 83, 84. I think bodybuilding.com will cover the Olympia, and their coverage in terms of total number of hits, watching it live, will swamp on replays, etc., what NBC will do. I think we're going to cover it. And, you know, me and Dave's expertise input into the show, unless NBC gets Arnold himself, will trump anyone that they have. Who's going to do the commentating on it, by the way? I'm serious.
I don't know. I'd love to say Doc Emmerich. You know, the guy who did the NHL playoffs? I would love to see that. I don't know what he would bring us. I mean, his big thing is saying, score! I don't know how you could possibly bring that to bodybuilding, but I would love to see him commentate. Chris, I'm going to ask you, who's your dream team bodybuilding commentators, aside from yourself and Dave, of course?
We'd have to throw. I'm not going to exclude us because the dream team would be me, Dave, and Arnold, and we'd probably get the guy from Showtime Boxing. What's the old guy he's been doing?
Letterman?
What's that?
It's not Letterman, right?
No, not Berman. Is it Berman? Showtime Boxing, the guy who goes and gets in the boxers' faces after the fight, and he asks them the personal questions.
Harold Letterman. Harold
Letterman.
Now, anyways, somebody will know. So, you know, I'll be comfortable with me, Dave, and Arnold, and being able to go. What I would like to do is broadcast it, and when we crown the Mr. Olympia, we get immediately to go up there and ask him all the questions that the fans want to know. I mean, immediately the tough stuff is, you know, last year would have been asking Phil Heath, how's it feel to be Ty Green again? You know, right on stage within 40 seconds after. So that'd be my dream team. But I guess to sum it up, really, it's a very small feather in the cap of bodybuilding, because I think all on its own, bodybuilding, without ever having the support of NBC for the last 20 years, you know, it's done a pretty good job in getting out there.
Well, again, John, I'm going to turn over to you now. And again, I bring the analogy of the growth of soccer in America and the role that NBC Sports Network has played in growing the role of viewership of soccer in America. Now, soccer, too, they're going to say, well, we didn't need NBC Sports Network. We're the world sport. We're huge. Yes, we've gotten it more into U.S. households, but you look at the World Cup now and the viewership is through the roof, and many people attribute that to the job that NBC Sports Network has done. You look at the elevation that they've brought about for hockey, for the NHL, for, again, I bring it up, fishing, and for car racing, and the overall platform reach and power that they have to get bodybuilding into more American households. Do you not see value in that?
Absolutely. I think this is a great thing, and I was pleasantly surprised, but really happy to hear that NBC was going to cover it. And like you said, it's the first time in 30 years. So this is absolutely a great thing, no doubt about it. And one of the reasons why is not only the numbers are going to reach, and they're going to reach a lot more. Like you said, they're going to reach a lot more people than bodybuilding.com doing it live, even though those numbers may be big. This is going out to all the regular people, all the general public. And so it's going to reach a lot more people. But the real reason is it legitimizes the sport of bodybuilding. And I want to emphasize the sport of bodybuilding. I remember seeing bodybuilding covered by Wide World of Sports, CBS Sports World, NBC, back in the 70s and 80s. And back then, I mean, think about it. If bodybuilding is covered by Wide World of Sports, then it's considered a sport. I've gotten into arguments with people on these message boards with guys who are bodybuilders who say, oh, bodybuilding's not a sport. Bodybuilding's not a sport. It's just a freak show. So here's bodybuilders themselves who don't even think bodybuilding is a sport. Bodybuilding is a sport. I think so. And now that it's going to be covered by a sporting network, you have to say that it is a sport, and it's going to legitimize it as a sport. So now bodybuilding isn't going to be considered a freak show where all these guys are just on steroids and they just all take drugs. No, this is a sport. This is something they train for, they work for, they're athletes, and it's going to be considered now a legitimate thing, simply because it's going to be on cable TV or network TV.
John brings up a phenomenal point using the L word, legitimize. See, I'm not going to say mainstream, because I think that's a hazy definition when it comes to bodybuilding. I think it's been around long enough. There are plenty of people who recognize the validity of the sport, validity of the activity. But Chris, we're going to go back over to you. Does this legitimize bodybuilding to mainstream America in a way where you're not necessarily going to get that same recognition or exposure just through the online channels that only people in the industry or super fans are really going to know about?
Did NBC legitimize fishing?
Absolutely. Did you know about bass fishing before NBC Sports Network?
If Arnold Schwarzenegger, the governor of the sixth biggest economy in the world, who still says, I love bodybuilding and do it every day, hasn't legitimized bodybuilding, to go on TV, I'm not saying there's not an upside to it. There is. But I don't do jumping jacks and say it's unbelievable for the sport of bodybuilding. There's a benefit to it because people who watch the Kardashian show and sitting on and Housewives of Atlanta, I watch both of those, by the way. That's why I know them and reference them. And eat chips and lie in bed. They'll watch bodybuilding too. And some kids will watch it, and some people watch it and want to get involved in bodybuilding as well. But I don't buy into the crazy numbers that are going to see it. It's going to be on once. People flip past channels. They channel surf. It's not going to be seen by 10 million people. That's for sure. I mean, what's the reach of NBC during that time slot? 300,000. I mean, there's only 300,000 people watch CNBC News on primetime on any given night. So. I challenge it's great, but I challenge the idea that more people see it than actually see it on bodybuilding.com live or replay.bodybuilding.com when all the numbers are added up and said and done.
Well, again, my position on this, and again, me being the host, I'm not necessarily going to have a position that people are salivating to hear, but I look at it where NBC Sports Network, it's not NBC, it's not ESPN, it's not Fox Sports.
What is it then? So make the distinction. If it's not NBC
I look at
Sports,
it,
what is it?
I look at it as something where this is it's a testing ground. I mean, why is it that... Well, think about NBC Sports Network, the evolution. At first, it was the Outdoor Life Network, the OLN. OLN took a bet on hockey. And again, I'm using that example because the Stanley Cup playoffs just wrapped up. And the OLN network, which evolved into NBC Sports Network, took a bet on hockey. Hockey after it came back from its second strike. And you saw the way that they took the sport, packaged it, and turned it into something that, again, I hate to use the word, but mainstream America wanted to see, and now you're starting to get it bandied about on NBC. So now when it's on NBC, it's in front of millions upon millions of Americans. I'm not saying necessarily they're going to take bodybuilding and flip it to NBC, but again, do you not see the value as a pedestal, as a stepping stone now to maybe something bigger in the cable ranks?
Yeah, I see the value of the cachet to it. I guess you could say that, so long as they keep Rich Piana's face off the broadcast.
All right, Dave, we're going to go over to you now for the final word on this subject. Dave, when you look at the NBC Sports Network and the job that it's done in promoting various sports, and now that they're going to be latching on to really the crown jewel event of bodybuilding, the Mr. Olympia, they're going to be broadcasting it, of course, a month after, on October 18th and the 25th. This is, of course, the 50th year anniversary. Do you see this as a monumental moment for bodybuilding as far as multimedia platforms, as far as the television outreach and what the potential impact can be? Or do you fall where Chris falls on this subject, that it's not necessarily going to have that big of an impact, and it may be too little too late considering what bodybuilding already has as far as its online reach?
I hope I'm wrong, but I have a feeling it'll happen once and we'll never see it again, unfortunately. I like how the Olympia people have the NBC Sports logo on the Olympia poster, but they don't really have the fact that it says Sports Network. They actually put the NBC Sports. It's like Steve Wennerstrom. I don't know if anyone knows Steve Wennerstrom. He's the IFBB women's historian. He walks around with an NBC hat on, so the people think he works for NBC, but they really don't. So yeah, the Olympia is going to be on NBC Sports Network, but it's not going to be on NBC. So if you want to make a big deal about it, I mean, like John, you said earlier, I mean, they used to put the Olympia on Wide World of Sports. You know, that's on whatever it was, ABC, I think at the time. That's prime time. You want to impress me? Put the Olympia on NBC. It's only 2 shows they're putting on. They're not rebroadcasting it. Why does it have to go on their cable station? You know, to me, that's almost disrespectful. This is the Super Bowl of bodybuilding, and you're putting it on some subsidiary channel. Not good as far as I'm concerned. And I agree with Chris in the sense, and I hate to keep agreeing with him, but we kind of see things similar. I think that the bodybuilding.com livecast is going to be 1,000,000 times more potent in terms of reaching people because, let's face it, it's live. It's live. If you're telling me that the NBC Sports Network said, saved hockey. They saved it because they put live events on. The World Cup is live. People tune in because it's live. They want to see what happens. They already know what happened at the Olympia. You might catch a couple of 7-year-olds at home who are, eating, Twizzlers who might catch the Olympia broadcast just by accident, But other than that, I don't think anyone's really going to look. Maybe I'm sure all of us here will probably tune in just to see what they do with it and to see who they get hosted. My dream team of hosting, Lou Ferrigno, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay, so now if we're sitting here, Dave, in 2015, and now NBC Sports Network, or another channel for that matter, decides, you know what, we're going to do the Mr. Olympias live. Then what about that? Do you see that then as you can go back then?
I applaud. I applaud them. I say, hallelujah. Finally someone sees it. Someone gets it. You know what? Maybe we'll actually get a real sponsor on board at that point.
But do you not see that as sort of a potential end game to NBC Sports Network saying to themselves, let's take a gamble here. Let's see what we have.
I think NBC Sports Network said, you know what? It's the 50th anniversary of the Olympia. we're going to give him a one-time deal, throw him a bone. We'll make a big deal, but the 50th anniversary, we'll show retrospective footage of Arnold winning because everyone wants to see Arnold. We'll show Haney and Dorian, and we'll do a whole special on the Mr. Olympia contest. And then, you know what? We'll be done until the next 50 years. 50 years from now, they'll do another special.
50 years from now, so what are we looking at here? If it was 1984 was the last, 2014, 2064.
Yeah.
If you'll still be around.
So.
All right, so we're going to move on now to the segment that drew the most ravest reviews, and that's going to be FaceTime. So our competitors and Dave each prepared a 30 to 60-second rant. John, since this is your first show with us, we are going to go to you first as we go for FaceTime, starting with John in Tampa, Florida.
Well, my rant is about the lost art of posing. I was just at a contest out here in Tampa a couple weeks ago. I saw one bodybuilder, one, that looked like he practices posing. I saw every other bodybuilder come out there with the hands up like this, like, come on, pose, applaud for me, applaud for me. Nobody practices their posing anymore. This is a huge part, in my opinion, of what bodybuilding is. It's the sport and art of bodybuilding, like they call the book Pumping Iron. And there's a lost art to this where people are not practicing their posing. I'm sure Dave remembers because he goes back too. When we used to prepare for contests, we used to practice our posing routine for 8 to 12 weeks. That means we spent like an hour a day, 8 to 12 weeks before the show, choreographing our poses, working on the transitions, choreographing it to music. It was a huge part, and it was a respectful thing. When you got up on that stage and you gave a great posing routine, the other competitors respected you, the audience respected you. Not once did any of these guys ever ask for applause. So I just think it's a lost art. I think it's a lost art with the professionals, and that's where all these amateur bodybuilders are picking it up. They're watching these professionals guest pose, and they're asking for applause. They're not choreographing their routines. They're not preparing, and that's where the amateurs are picking it up. And it needs to change now. I mean, some of these pros need to really start working on their posing in order for the amateurs to be inspired by them.
John Hansen bringing it in his first show on Iron Debate. John, we appreciate your participation. Excellent job. We now go back to the state of Florida, Miami Beach. Chris Aceto by the beach for your FaceTime.
My rant is bodybuilders who want to shut up other bodybuilders. And it's a product of social media again. Not a product of NBC Sports, but Instagram and Facebook and tweets and all these things. I can't tell you how many competitors that I've worked with in the last 4 years. Walk into their hotel room. Let's say it's Johnny Styles. Say, Johnny, let's see a front double bicep. I said, wow, Johnny, it looks crazy. I said, let's see your front lat spread. I'm getting excited. And he hits his front lat spread, and I said, Johnny, it looks great. You're going to be really hard to beat. That's my favorite line is, you're going to be hard to beat because I never tell anyone you're going to beat so-and-so or you're going to win. I just say, you're going to be hard to beat. It's inevitable. Johnny says, I can't wait to fucking shut up, Palumbo. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought you were training to be the best that you could be, and if you do the best that you could be, win or lose, you're still the winner because you're the best that you can be. You gave in your best effort, but there's always this little, I don't know what it is, this little slight that bodybuilders have against other bodybuilders where they say, and it comes out, I can't wait to shut some people up, and then they name these people. So, I wish that just bodybuilders would focus on being the best that they can be. Which I guess maybe it takes maturity to do. I can't. I never once was with Troy Alves, 47, where I said, Troy, you look great. Where he says, I can't wait to shut up Tony Freeman, or I can't wait to shut up so and so. He's like, thanks, great. I got to get better. So that's my rant.
So Chris Aceto, bringing out the smack talk that exists in the bodybuilding world. Chris, great job bringing it as usual. We now go to Dave Palumbo for his FaceTime.
I want to almost applaud John Hansen because I loved his FaceTime. I'm a fan of it because, I'm at so many shows and I see guys, putting their hands to their ear like they want applause, begging, or as my friend Charlie Arm says, begging for applause, which is, it's nauseating almost. You never do that at a competition. You're not the guest poser when you're competing at a competition. Another thing people do is they run around the stage and they don't realize that the photographers are taking pictures of them on the X on the stage is the best lighting. So That's another mistake. But I'm not going to go into John's rant. My rant actually is the people who complain about they don't have enough carbohydrates in their diet. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I can't tell you how many times I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. You're supposed to be hungry. You're dieting. You're suffering. You're burning fat. You're hungry when your body is burning fat. If you weren't hungry, you wouldn't be burning fat. Stop complaining. If you want to be a great bodybuilder, you got to suffer, and you're going to be hungry. Okay? I think Arnold made a movie, right? It was called Stay Hungry. Stay hungry, and you'll be a great bodybuilder. That's my rant for the day.
Dave Palumbo bringing it, as always, telling you to stay hungry and not to whine. That's going to do it for this edition of Iron Debate. I'm Sadiq Faruqi, reminding you that Heavy Muscle TV returns tomorrow night, 7:30, featuring Vince Fiore and Amit Roy. 7:30 on RX TV on RxMuscle.com. Well, again, that's going to do it for Iron Debate. I'm Sadiq Faruqi, reminding you that you will miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and keep it locked to RxMuscle.com. Have a good night.